Hi Campbell, how are you?
Good.
You're looking very sharp.
Hi, it's the Scorial.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lovely, my favourite suit at the moment because it's just so comfortable. It's like wearing pyjamas, the trousers. Incredible. So welcome everyone. My name's Campbell Carey and I'm joined here today by Peter Radford, the chairman of the Scorial group. He's going to tell us the wonderful story of the Scorial wool, going back to the King of Spain in the 1500s, and it features heavily in our ready-to-wear collection for this autumn-winter. We'd usually see you every 6 months, I guess, you and Vicky coming across, so it's nice to see you in these times on the screen.
I'm really looking forward to getting over to Savile Row again and seeing all the guys and getting up to the mill and talking to the guys that do such a wonderful job of weaving and finishing and a Scorial, and all the skills they put into it and the time they put into it. I mean, the time that these people have put into a Scorial in Yorkshire.
Yeah, the passion, the love.
Scotland, where we started, has been amazing. The dedication they've put to this project has been amazing. So today, it's through those guys that we've actually salvaged the breed from extinction.
It's a wonderful story going all the way back to the 1500s, and following so the flock went from Spain to Germany to Scotland to Tasmania to New Zealand, and that's where you found it.
That's correct. We founded it in 1998. With a group of growers who had the remaining flocks of the remaining and surviving Escorial flocks that directly descended from the King of Spain and in the 16th century, his own flock. So it's been quite a journey to salvage the breed and get it to this stage and now get it into places like Huntsman, which is fantastic. Be recognised as something that's quite special.
And back in 1967, you first were introduced to the breed, right?
Yes, I was on a bank scholarship in Tasmania and to study the Australian wool industry, and I came across this flock of sheep and the people that owned them, and at the time they were known as quite odd animals because they were smaller than the other breeds, and the wool was recognised as very distinctive, but it was always blended with other things,
right,
to make other fibres, give them more life or more make them softer or give them more bounce and elasticity.
And the sheep
was never used by itself.
Is the sheep half the size of a merino sheep? I mean, it's quite a small beast, right?
Yeah, I mean, the average weight of a Saxon or a Scorial sheep is something like 35 to 45 kilos. A merino sheep is 65 to 80 kilos.
But what it loses in size, it makes up in volume, right? Just looking at this two samples here, this is 3 grams of superfine wool and 3 grams of Escorial wool, so it's almost double the volume, right? In fact, more than.
Yeah, and that's the secret behind everything in fabrics, and that's why it's got this elasticity and crease recovery. I guess what is you're actually trapping air between all the fibres,
right? And
that comes about because it's got so many more crimps per centimetre than anything else.
That's the zigzag appearance of the yarn close up, right?
Yeah, and it's a technical thing. It's easily understood if you think of a bridge, a lattice bridge.
Yep.
And how the crosses, rather than something made from a steel beam, it's trapping air between every fibre. And the trick to understand it in processing is to be able to let the air come back in, so it's got this natural crease recovery, and it's a joy to wear then, because you're actually wearing something that's around your body that's trapping air.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing it today. I road tested the 4-ply London Shrunk, which will feature in our Autumn-Winter collection this year. I have to say, it's my favourite suit of all time. It's an incredible thing to wear. The trousers on the leg feel like pyjamas, just so soft. And as a cutter, 20 years on the row, you would usually steer yourself away from cloths like this because on the road we have to make sure that one suit we take with us on a trunk show for 2-3 weeks wears, still looks good at the end of the show, end of the 2-week trip. So this is really, for me, an oxymoron. It's got that wonderful luster, handle, finish and feel to it. But yet it wears incredibly well. The creases fall out at the end of the day. The crease in the trouser has, I've had it for 6 months now. I've not had to press the trouser once. It's just it's phenomenal stuff. Really beautiful to wear.
The other thing about it is it doesn't shine like a normal fabric will. You can wear it, and it's got this matte appearance. It's got a depth of colour, a richness about it.
Yeah, so it really takes the dye well.
Yeah. And
which is always tough on navy blues.
Yeah, it's got a very deep colour, and that's because the scale structure on the fibre. It's the scales that open up that allow the dye to penetrate into the fibre to take up the dye.
So woolen yarn is not actually smooth, is it? It's got scales on it.
It's got a lot of scales on it. Yeah, and human hair has too.
Mm-hmm.
When they open up in the dyeing process, it absorbs more dye.
Okay.
So that's why it's got this richness of colour that you don't get with cashmere or with the normal wool.
Well, we've got two Scorial garments. We've got the navy blue suit and also the wonderful kind of French navy blue herringbone. And that, to your point you've just said about the depth of colour, that that quite wide herringbone. It's got a lovely two-tone finish to it, really rich and luxurious looking. A really cracking cloth.
You'll get more wears out of an Escorial suit than you will out of the equivalent in a normal wool over a week, over a month, over a year, because you don't have to give it the same care. Mm-hmm. Although you do care for it, but
yep.
You wake up in the morning and it looks great again. You can put it back on again. And this is one of the comments that we get back from people. Some people have, in professional people, and might have 3 suits that they wear for the week.
Yeah.
But with Scorial, they can actually go through the week with one.
And you yourself have a blazer that goes back to the 90s, is that right?
I've got a suit that was made by Brioni in 1998.
Wow.
I still wear it. It hasn't got shine. It is absolutely perfect. We had an exclusive arrangement with Brioni way back when we first started. And I'm very grateful for them for recognising that. And they complain still today that the problem with the Scorial, it doesn't wear out. You don't get to sell another suit. But it's for the wearer, he's getting extremely good value. You want to sell more suits, and I want to sell more Scorial. It outlasts anything else by miles.
And it's actually, not to get into too much technicality, but it's better than cashmere, right?
Well, I mean, cashmere is a keratin fibre, just like our hair or our fingernails. It's just the same as the wool, but it's called cashmere. Cashmere has got it's got wonderful. It is so soft and it feels great, but it doesn't have the crimp that gives it crease recovery, or it doesn't have the scales that will hold it together and gives it the elasticity the natural elasticity and wearability that the Scorial's got. I mean, don't get me wrong, cashmere is a beautiful fibre and it makes beautiful scarves and shawls and fabrics and jacketings, but a Scorial jacket will far outlast and outwear a cashmere jacket.
Since the initial you being introduced to the flock in '67, have you grown the flock?
We actually haven't grown it, but what we've done is we've preserved it from it. We've stopped it going into becoming extinct, and we've got enough now spread around the world to we've salvaged them. It's still a very rare animal. We've got to maintain it. They aren't easy animals to look after. They require a lot of care, and almost down to a personal care.
Wow.
The flocks tend to be very small, as opposed to merinos, and where one person can manage a flock of 5,000, 10,000. With a Scorial, they're like an English thoroughbred. They require a lot of care.
Yeah.
And they respond to care as well.
Because the actual animal, the meat's not any good, is it? And
well, they're so small, and they're very slow maturing, and a Scorial sheep will take twice as long to mature to its an adult size, its natural size, as any other sheep. But the other side of it is it lives much longer.
Oh, okay.
They live. Typically, they live 12, 15 years, whereas a normal sheep will live 8 to 9 years.
Yeah, they're quite handsome-looking animal, aren't they? Pretty cute things. I guess we should talk about the zero waste. With us, we're trying to bring in an initiative both in a ready-to-wear and a bespoke practices that were with more emphasis on traceability than ever. That's why Scorial for us really fits, because you can basically trace the wool back to each farmer and each sheep.
Correct. We actually go to the farms, and our person who selects the wool, his name is Chris Stewart. He's been involved in wool and fine wool all his life, and he's an expert at choosing and selecting the best parts of the fleece. So we're able to trace every kilogram all the way through, because there's no it's never traded between companies. It remains in our ownership all the way through.
So you have control of the whole process, basically.
We control the whole process, and I think that's unique in the world.
Supply chain is vertical, basically.
It's totally vertical, and I guess the reason is there's such a small amount involved. It's not hard to trace. We're not talking hundreds and hundreds of bales. We're talking a few bales of wool, not hundreds of thousands of kilos. We're talking about a few thousand kilos. And so we're able to trace it to those 4 farms, and then and that batch gets a number. So we're able to follow that batch all the way through processing, and to the suit that you've got on today, we can trace that back to 4 farms.
Incredible.
The brand of Scorial, we own it worldwide, so it's a Scorial wool, it's a Scorial yarn, it's a Scorial fabric, and when it goes into your garment, it carries a label, it says a Scorial. Well, we can guarantee that is a Scorial and nothing else.
Wow. And also you can control the finishing process, right? Because I can imagine it could be ruined, and the finished cloth could be, if it's not done correctly.
Yeah, we're always watching very carefully that, and we're very fortunate to have some great people in Yorkshire,
yeah,
who understand how to look after noble fibres. It's something that UK's retained over what the rest of the world doesn't have. It's probably seen as something like that's ancient or whatever, but it's craftsmanship, and it's an artisan product. And the finishing of every fabric is slightly different. The regime that W.T. Johnson finished each cloth for whether it be jacketing or coating or whatever, it is slightly different, and it's about craftsmanship. The water that it's washed in and the length of time it's washed, and the length and how it's dried and how it's finally prepared in the London shrinking process.
It's allowed to dry naturally, right? It's not put through the rollers. It's hung on a zigzag frame, right?
And for whatever reason, Escorial it enhances the Escorial product more than most other fabrics. The London shrinking process that W.T. Johnson did, and they've put a lot of effort into understanding the fibre. In the first few years, I mean, we just didn't. It wasn't. People didn't understand it. It was too lively to work with. The yarn broke because it requires moisture when you're spinning, or humidity to keep it. So the whole process is very slow. It's a slow process to make an Escorial fabric, and hence the cost.
Ultimately worth it, right?
Yeah. And the customer's getting something that is going to is of real value and is going to last a lifetime, literally a lifetime.
And still look as good as the day you first picked it up. It's an incredible cloth. I'm
wearing a Scorial knit. This is, I think it's about 12 years old. All fine fibres will shed for a start, but in knitwear, it once it's shed its initial the fluff off the top,
surface,
and it holds its shape. It never bows. It just keeps its perfect shape all the time, and that's the same as your suit.
So thank you very much for that, Peter. It's been wonderful to see you, and great to catch up, albeit over a screen.
Well, we may have to do this for a couple of months, but hopefully, Campbell, I get to see you guys in the flesh in January.
We see your wonderful Scorial garments in our store as well.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, Campbell.